like to call this meeting to order, this regular City Council meeting on Tuesday, June 25th. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mayor Wolcott.
Here.
Vice Mayor Biendo.
Here.
Councilmember Villanueva. Here. Councilmember Alton.
Here.
Councilmember Mankiewicz.
Here.
Councilmember Hall.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams is absent this evening. If you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two items, if I may. The first item, with if I can say much happiness, I'm proud to announce that we have, effective yesterday, our new CFO and assistant city manager on board, Bob Wiggenroth. And Bob is right over there. Bob, if you can, wave a hand. Bob comes to us from Anaheim, California, and is as you know, Madam Chair and members of the council, Bob comes to us with extensive experience, and we're very excited about having it on board. He came last week to meet initially with the members of all three departments that he'll have purview over, and has jumped right in the position. I'm very pleased and very happy to have Bob as part of our team. Bob, welcome. Look forward to making your experience one that will not only be memorable, but fulfilling as well. And thank you very much for becoming a part of our team. Looking forward to a great relationship. So, with that, the second announcement, I'll turn right over to Jeff to make an announcement about a new business.
Madam Chair, members of City Council, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's been a while since we had a good economic development pep rally, and tonight we get to have one, which I'm really excited to share with you. Every now and then, a new company comes to the City of Surprise that doesn't do a development agreement, that doesn't ask for incentives, and we don't have a big groundbreaking, anything like that, but they have a significant impact on the City of Surprise. And one of those new businesses is CampCore USA. So I want to introduce the business to you, talk about the impact, and of course, welcome the president to the City of Surprise. Overview, I want to give you the background of the company, their location, talk to you about their production process, which is very unique and interesting, give you a snapshot on the impact, and again, of course, introduce you to the principal. This is more about, again, direct foreign investment into the City of Surprise. CampCore is headquartered in Alberta, Canada, and now have another business here in Surprise, Arizona. They build completely furnished construction camps, and they do them for all different very large-scale projects throughout the United States. And some of you have heard about, like in North Dakota, South Dakota, we're doing either large-scale mining operations, oil field operations, where they're in very remote areas, and they simply don't have existing housing stock. So what CampCore does is they come in and they actually build those homes in a very large-scale basis and then ship them to those areas that are needed. It's a neat, innovative idea, and they do it all here in the City of Surprise. So we're excited about that. They do all their own construction on site. You can see the picture. It's a little bit blurry, but you can see those are the actual products that they build, and they can do them in mass quantities and large scale. And what it does more than anything else, it provides a safe, secure, nice place for the workers to go and have good housing as they're toiling and working hard in those different parts of the city. Here's where they're located, and you probably will be surprised. A 25-acre site at the northeast corner of Bell and Grand. So they took down a very large parcel, and they've been out there for quite a while. They started the process last summer. It's an innovative operation. They have 12 different stages of construction, and the pictures show the progression where they do the framing, then they put the frames together, then they do the walls inside, and they start the finishing process. They do 12 stations in 12 days, so they're extremely efficient. They do one station per day, and they create 720 square foot modular units as they go and build. And at the end of the day, it's a furnished modular living unit with 3 to 5 rooms per unit. And they do a lot of really interesting finishes, again, all on site. They do drywalling for a laundry room, for example. They do moisture barrier for exterior hallways. So again, it's good quality construction. They even finish the rooms, putting in the washrooms, the wall coverings, and so on. Again, very large site, 25 acres. And the other thing I want to point out to you, again, they're helping us with vacant space. They took over the 25 acres, but they also took 40,000 square feet of previously vacant space, did the tenant improvements, and are manufacturing there. The number one thing they did, more than anything else, is they created 130 jobs in the city of Surprise. And please keep in mind, too, think about their employees. They hit an area that was really suffering in the city of Surprise, folks that were in the trades, folks that were doing building construction. Now they're employing those folks. So we owe them a great debt of gratitude to do all that work. I want to stress to you that this is another one of those wonderful projects brought to you by Mike Hoover, the corporation. It's self-generated leads. So again, Mike, well done. I also want to point out to you that Laquita King, our summer intern, high school intern, where's Laquita? Over there, did the presentation tonight for us. I want to thank her for doing that as well. So again, great project. I want to introduce to you Paul McCracken, who's the owner of their company. Please join me and give him a warm welcome.
Mr. McCracken, welcome to Surprise. A little belated, but we're certainly thrilled to have you here and here before the council this evening.
Well, Mayor Walcott, thank you, and council members, and Mike and Chris, we appreciate the opportunity to come before you tonight and just explain a little bit about our business. We're a family-owned business. We have about 1,000 employees, about 130 here, of course. We service the oil and gas industry mainly in Canada, but we're currently looking at the Bakken and trying to put our roots down there as well. Mike was instrumental in bringing us to Surprise. We had several locations to look at, but the abundant workforce that's here is, or was an attraction. It is an attraction. It's great to be able to get skilled people. Back in Alberta, we can't do that as easily as we can here. We have 2 plants in Alberta. We have Slave Lake, Alberta, and in Edmonton we have 2 plants. Camp Corp USA, Camp Corp Canada are part of 12 companies that my family owns and operates. We have a camp catering business as well that we, manage about 2,000 beds throughout northern Alberta and British Columbia. And what we build, we're really excited about being here and building this product. It's mainly dorms. When you put a camp together, it consists of sleeping areas and then, of course, kitchens, KDRs. And we build most of our kitchens back in Alberta because they're oversized in height, 13 and a half feet. And most of our dorms are less than that, so they're easy to transport. The site we have is great because we have rail, we have access to a ready supply of raw materials. We have a great labor force, and we have some really great people. My family, of course, my kids, 2 of my kids went to school in the United States, and we have a house over in Phoenix on Baseline, so we've been here for a number of years. But we really appreciate getting the opportunity to come and talk to you about our company. We service mainly large oil companies, and some of which you may or may not have heard of in Canada, Cenovus, CNRL. CNRL produces the most oil in Canada, 650,000 barrels a day. Apache, Shell, Imperial Oil, we build for all those guys. So what we do, Darren Down runs our plant, and Darren's with me tonight. And I invite any of you and anyone in the audience for that matter, if they want to come and have a tour and see what we do over there, we'd love to have you. But we're bullish on what's going to happen over the next few years here because our economy in Alberta is pretty vibrant, and the Dakotas are vibrant, and we think there's a place for what we build. We build offices as well, but we don't try to compete with companies like Williams Scotsman and ATCO. We do it on a much smaller scale, but we're pretty specific in our camp construction needs. So having said that, I guess we look forward to growing our jobs here. If we get the work that we're anticipating to get over the next 12 months, we hope to be able to grow that workforce to about 170 over the next 6 months. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Really appreciate your being here. Congratulations. Congratulations to you and your entire team, Mike, and all of the folks in your department who have helped make this a successful launch to the business. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anything else? Chris, anything else on your list?
Nothing else, Madam Chair.
All right,
Thank
the
you.
City Attorney's report.
Mayor and Council, I am pleased to report that of the 3 grants, if you recall, during our budget retreat session with the City Attorney's Office, we identified 3 grants that we were applying for to help fund a position over in the Prosecutor's Office relative to victim advocacy. Of the 3 grants, we've heard back on 2. We were fortunate to get one of those 2 grants. It's $24,000, which is with a $6,000 matching requirement by the city. The 3rd grant, we have not heard back yet, but we are anticipating hearing back in the next week or so. So hopefully by the time you guys get back from break, we'll come back with a request for an FTE and a sufficient funding for those.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Misty. We'll move on to the regular City Council agenda, which is the consent items 1 through, I believe, 1 through 7. Is there any item on that list that anyone wishes to remove for discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Yeah, unanimous 6 yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item, I'm going to move, so just hang on, all of you folks who are going to be receiving awards here this evening, because we've got 3 people that, and I hope you don't mind, but we need to move item number 26, 18, and 19 up to the front of tonight's agenda, and hopefully Mr. Hellman will go rather quickly.
Would you like 26 first, Chris? This is consideration and action on Resolution 2013-75, acceptance of Red Oak Consulting Review of Development Agreements, Results, and Recommendations.
Mr. Hellman?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council. If I can, I'll talk briefly really about all 3 items that the mayor just highlighted, and then you can take the actions individually as needed. You may recall last week we spent a couple of hours walking through each 3 of these items. We don't have a particular presentation tonight, but what might be helpful is just to not only remind the mayor and the council, but really our residents, the impact of the information that was provided, and the good news, the good solid financial news that these 3 items are presenting to the city that is here for your approval tonight. Items number 18 and 26 are the results of all your post-audit work. Again, last year for our fiscal year 11 audit, we received a qualified opinion. That is not a good thing to receive in the accounting world, and our auditors gave us some very specific instructions on what we needed to look at in order to review and to analyze and to come back with any information that they would request relative to those 2 items, most notably our impact fees and our development agreements. And you may recall the extent that our auditors and our consultants that we brought in to review all that they went through in order to ensure that the city's books are accurate. And if you recall, relative to impact fees, they went through over 180,000 impact fee transactions, well over 90% of all those impact fee transactions, to make sure that they were properly booked and recorded. In addition, we went through all of the development agreements and their addendums to make sure that any liabilities that we have are also properly recorded on our books. And the good news is we went through that. We're making the changes necessary, in the fiscal year 12 audit. And with this information, our auditors, and this is item number 19 that you have in front of you, is the fiscal year 12 audit. Our auditors went through that process, not only reviewed our books for fiscal year 12, incorporated any of the changes that we needed to make from the post-audit work, and through all of that effort, and if I can highlight the efforts of Pat and Sandy, who are here in case you have any questions, the effort that they went through in the internal staff, in the finance department, most notably Andrea and her crews, the amount of effort and the amount of work that they went through over the last 14 months to clean up our books and to go more in depth than I think the city has ever seen and that many cities have ever seen. The type of analysis that we went through to ensure that our books, are accurate relative to what our financial past was. Really appreciate all their efforts, and because of all of those efforts, our auditors are issuing for our fiscal year 12 audit a clean and unqualified opinion for the city of Surprise. And those are the three items that you have in front of you. 18 and 16 are the acceptance of the post-audit work, and item 19 is the acceptance of the fiscal year 12 audit. So if you have any additional questions, again, you have myself and Pat and Sandy here. We'd be happy to answer them. So thank you.
Chris, thank you. First of all, I just want to speak on behalf of the citizens of Surprise who are so very grateful to have come to this day. This is a very big day for us to have reached this point. You took some very specific direction from this council, and we told you that we wanted a very aggressive plan of recovery that also included looking into our financial past and making certain that we uncovered every rock, because we could not feel confident in securing a clear understanding if we're going to plan our day, as you say, unless we know that we have a solid foundation. And so the work that's been performed by our outside consultants and our finance department has been, it's been heroic, frankly. And so we really appreciate all that's been done on behalf of the citizens of Surprise. And I just firmly want to thank you and all those involved. First of all, Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, could you get me a copy of Exhibit A on item number 26?
Yeah, that would be, yep, it's right there. It was a presentation that was created last week by Clifton Larson Allen.
Thank you. All right, I'm good.
Councilmember Rankowitz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to also add my commendations for the work, and looking at the independent auditor's report, trying to find the words clean and unqualified in there somewhere. I had to zero in on their understated way of congratulating us by saying, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly, in all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, etc., 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 in conformity with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That, to me, is poetry. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Then we will proceed with the first action item, which is action item on number 26. I'll entertain a motion. Is there a motion to accept the Red Oak Consulting Review and Audit? A motion has been made. Is there a second? A motion has been made and seconded to accept the Red Oak Auditing Report. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous 6 yes vote, Mayor.
Next item.
Number 18, consideration and action on Resolution 2013-67, acceptance of the performance audit results and recommendations.
I move to approve Resolution 2013-67, acceptance of Clifton Larson Allen performance audit results and recommendations.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve this item as presented. Seeing no further questions, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item.
Consideration and action on Resolution 2013-68.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2013-68.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve item 19 as presented.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second, Mayor. Who made the second? Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you for your indulgence in the audience for letting us move these items forward. So again, thank you, Chris, and thank your staff. Next item.
And we're going to number 8. And these are presentation of the 3 life-saving awards.
Okay.
Would you like me to read each one, Mayor?
Actually, I will. I've got the awards right here. And Vice Mayor, if you would help me out here. First, I'd like to call forward Joseph Sana.
Right there between the computer and monitor.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's on? Yes, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to once again be honoring another very, very important hero in our eyes. And on behalf of the City Council, we come before you. I want to just describe the event. A young girl was attacked by a pit bull dog who had locked into her leg with his teeth. Mr. Sana heard the screaming from his home and ran out to help, and he used his body strength to constrain the dog until police arrived on the scene. And so this evening, we are bestowing upon Joseph Sana for risking his own safety to rescue a child on April 19th, 2013. The Mayor and City Council are honored to recognize the extraordinary actions of Joseph Sana this June 2013. Congratulations.
Vice Mayor?
Next, I'd like to call forward Gina Narez and Carmen Ruiz. Thank you. Good evening, ladies. I want to first of all say that the nominators of this award are Hampton Inn and Suites General Manager Marco DeLeo, Charles Clark, who is a local investor, and Sue Hart, a local citizen, and Belva Court citizen in distress. Gina Narez, our front desk associate and a staffer since day one, had a chance to put some much-needed skills to work. Marco DeLeo, general manager, requires that all staff pass a CPR qualification and keep their skills updated annually at our Hampton Inn and Suites, and it proved valuable. A lady staying at the hotel and participating in a City of Surprise tennis event checked in after tennis and proceeded to her first floor room. Gina heard or anticipated a problem, and upon checking the hallway, saw the woman had collapsed to the ground. She immediately recognized the symptoms of a heart attack and appropriately applied CPR and simultaneously called EMT. The lady was rushed to Del Webb, and thanks to Gina's quick thinking, skills, and quick response to EMT, was able to get immediate treatment at the nearby hospital. At the 3 p.m. shift change, what does Gina do? Checks in to make sure the lady is recovering, and her husband is with her at the Del Webb Hospital. Carmen Ruiz, another employee who was also instrumental in helping Gina assist the hotel in the CPR process. These two women followed the two-man process for CPR and helped save a life. And so, Gina Narez and Carmen Ruiz, for quick thinking and appropriate administration of CPR during a potentially fatal situation on April 26, 2013, the Mayor and City Council are honored to recognize the extraordinary actions of these two women, Gina Narez and Carmen Ruiz. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And the next item, number 9.
This is Mayor Wilcott will recognize August as Drowning Impact Awareness Month.
And so I have a resolution to read this evening. Whereas Drowning Impact Awareness Month will raise awareness that the number and impact of child drownings in Arizona affects everyone. And whereas the drowning incidents in Arizona take the lives of the equivalent of a classroom of children each year. And whereas a child drowning can happen to any family, regardless of education, race, or socioeconomic background. And whereas families can take simple steps to protect their child around water to avoid the tragedy of the unnecessary loss of life. And whereas water safety remains a priority for Arizona families, communities, and government, and water watchers of Phoenix Children's Hospital. And whereas keeping children healthy and safe is the goal of water watchers at Phoenix Children's Hospital, Surprise Fire Department, and other prevention institutions in Arizona, raising awareness will increase understanding and education of effective ways to prevent drownings. Now, therefore, I, Sharon Walcott, Mayor of Surprise, do hereby proclaim August 1st through 31st, 2013 as Drowning Impact Awareness Month in the city of Surprise. And so, Mike or Chief, are you here? Would you accept this on behalf of the department? He might be out of the room. I think he is. Yeah. We'll just make sure that we'll make sure you get this. And so, thank you very much. Here he is, Mike. All yours. Yeah, you were out in the hall just congratulating everybody, so thank you. All right, thank you. Next item.
Item number 10, consideration and action to appoint Kimberly Stutzman to fill the vacancy on the Disability Advisory Commission with a term expiration of July 1st, 2017.
Vice Mayor Biondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Council members Villanueva, Hall, and I interviewed several applicants to fill vacancies on the DAC, including Kimberly Stutzman. She's unable to be here tonight, I think, because she has a class. She had to be in class tonight. Kimberly has a law degree, a Juris Doctorate, a bachelor's degree in psychology and education, and is a certified mediator. She also has some firsthand experience in her personal life dealing with disability issues. I move to appoint Kimberly Stutzman to a vacancy on the Disability Advisory Commission with a term ending July 1, 2017.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve this applicant as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll.
Okay, thank you very much. Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item.
Consideration and action to reappoint the following board commission members: David Sanders, Mark Brown, and Ron Jensen for the Community and Recreation Services Board, with a term expiration of July 1st, 2017. The resident John Longabaugh for the Judicial Selection Advisory Commission through July 1st, 2017. Honorable Peter Swan for the Arizona Court of Appeals for the JSAC, term to expire July 1st, 2016. He asked for a 3-year term. Tourism Advisory Commission Edward Westerfield and D'Angelo Hall with a term expiration of July 1st, 2017.
Vice Mayor Biondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the reappointment of the following board commission members: David Sanders, Mark Brown, and Ron Jensen to the Community and Recreation Services Commission with term expirations of July 1, 2017. To the Judicial Selection Advisory Commission, John Longabaugh, term expiring July 1, 2017, and the Honorable Peter Swan, term expiring July 1, 2016. I believe several of the members are here, if you'll stand as your names are called. And to the Tourism Advisory Commission, Ed Westerfield and D'Angelo Hall, terms expiring July 1, 2017.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve these board members and commission members for the terms outlined in the motion. Seeing no further discussion.
Oh, excuse me.
Councilmember.
I think I'm on
Councilmember Alton.
Thank you. I find it difficult to vote for all of these in the same agenda. I think they should be broken out. If you want the majority, you got to vote for everyone. If you want the minority, you can just say, no, I don't agree. But I think that it would behoove us as a council is to take each section and vote on it independently rather than lump them all together.
Councilmember Alton, are you amending the motion?
I am. I am saying that we'd like to take that independently on each one of the commissions and vote for it appropriately.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Councilmember Biondo.
I would be happy to withdraw my motion and then make separate individual motions, if that's appropriate.
Councilmember Biondo, I think that is appropriate, and if you would go ahead and do that.
I'll be happy to do that. I move the reappointment of David Sanders, Mark Brown, and Ron Jensen to the Community and Recreation Services Advisory Commission with term expirations of July 1, 2017.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the applicants for the
For the
Community Rec Services
right.
Commission as presented.
Mayor Wolcott, I'm sorry, I will not be able to do the individually. We'll have to do a voice vote.
We'll have
They're
to
not
do
in
a
the
voice vote.
system.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Next
Madam
item.
Chair, I move the reappointment to the Judicial Selection Advisory Commission of John Longabaugh, term expiring July 1, 2017, and the Honorable Peter Swan, term expiring July 1, 2016.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve these two applicants as requested. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, there is.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Councilmember Alton?
Sure. If we don't want to vote for one person and there's a two-person platform, so do we throw out the whole vote or do we do it independently?
Councilmember Alton, I think we just adopted three in one.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. I
Would you
understand.
like to?
Thank you.
Excuse me, is there a second on this motion? There's been a motion made and seconded to approve these two applicants as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
I need to do a voice vote,
Needs a
Mayor. I'm
voice
sorry.
vote. She needs a vote.
Excuse me, there's a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Councilmember Alton says no.
Thank you.
This item does pass.
There's one other.
And there's one more motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are two involved here, so I'll do two separate motions. I move to the reappointment to the Tourism Advisory Commission of Ed Westerfield with the term expiring July 1, 2017.
Point of order.
Councilmember Alton?
Yes, thank you. Why didn't we do that in the last vote? And that you were separating those two people in this particular agenda item, but you didn't separate the last two people.
Councilmember
I totally don't understand that. I'm sorry.
Member Alton, I do believe that you seconded the first motion on 3 applicants, and so we move forward with the understanding that that would be appropriate. So, Councilmember Biondo, perhaps to be consistent, we should just adopt the reappointments of those last 2 members.
At the pleasure of the council. I did a single motion. I would be happy to withdraw that motion and combine the other. I withdraw my original motion. I move the reappointment to the Tourism Advisory Commission of Ed Westerfield and D'Angelo Hall, terms expiring July 1, 2017.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to approve these applicants as presented. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Thank you. Councilmember Alton votes no. Next item.
Consideration and action on entering into a professional services agreement with Aramark for master concessionaire services at Surprise Stadium.
Mr. Cornell.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Mr. Hillman, I was before you last week and gave you a presentation. Happy to answer any questions. One of the things I did not mention last week, I know how important it is. We mentioned that both merchandise and concession services would go to Aramark for a 9-year term with 2 3-year options. One of the things I didn't highlight on, and I know how important it is to you because you've made the comment to me several times, Aramark has agreed to merchandise City of Surprise specific logo merchandise during spring training anytime they're open. I know it's been a big concern of Mr. Alton's, a big initiative of his, and others. You guys have mentioned that to me, and I mentioned to you during spring training this last year that the golf balls, the coffee cups, the pins, the little trinkets that go back and do a lot of promotion for us throughout the year were hot items. We actually sold out. So if there are no questions, I'm here to take them.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Mark, the $2 million contribution that's amortized over 15 years?
Yes, sir.
That's paid monthly?
No, sir. The $2 million will be paid upon the signature of the contract.
$2 million?
Yes, sir. Up front.
Why did we say it was amortized?
It's amortized over a 15-year term,
Okay.
which comes out to about $133,000 per year if you do the math. If we choose not to extend the contracts in years 10, 11, and 12, 13, 14, and 15, we'll be required to pay back those dollars.
I see. Okay, so, but they actually write a $2 million check.
Up front, that's correct.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Now, to put it in perspective, you didn't ask the question might be asked. That is the grant. The investment is amortized over 5 years. So the $275 they will spend next year in spring training will obviously have a 9-year term initially. So the 5 years will expire, so we won't have to pay that back if we for some reason had to go in and terminate the contract.
Thank you. Councilmember Alton.
Thank you. Mark, years past, we used to have a company store. We used to have a store for the city.
Yes, sir.
And it was on the main level of the City Hall.
Yes, sir.
That was here. And probably a year ago, that got shut down. After it came into your preview or your domain, it was given to you.
Yes, sir.
And there's a lot of people that come into the City of Surprise that would love to come and buy some memorabilia. The problem lies is that if we're only going to do this at spring training, it's not going to work.
I have an answer for you, Mr. Alton.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay. We have been working with the the Chamber of Commerce, Surprise Chamber of Commerce, we just signed a memorandum of understanding, and we look to bring the city store operation to the Chamber of Commerce lobby starting in the next 30 to 45 days. So you'll be able to purchase merchandise with city logos throughout the year at either the Chamber of Commerce or during the month of February and March at the stadium. They'll actually be on sale at both places.
Councilmember Alton,
Thank you.
We've strayed beyond the agenda item before us.
Oh, excuse me, Mayor.
Council, is there any further questions on the agenda item itself? Seeing no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to enter into a professional services agreement with Aramark for master concessionaire services.
There's been a motion made and seconded to adopt item number 12 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous 6-yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Item?
The Council Subcommittee met to discuss parameters for the Community Outreach Program. Subcommittee members include Vice Mayor Jim Biendo, Councilman Richard Alton, and Councilmember Skip Hall.
Councilmember Biondo, or Vice Mayor Biondo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me defer to Jessica Blazina, who's going to do a very brief presentation.
Thank you. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of Council. I am here to provide a brief update on the Community Outreach Program. I do have just a brief presentation for you. Just by way of background, you'll remember that I was before you on April 9th presenting concepts of this type of program. Subsequently, Council appropriated funding in the tentative budget, and the Mayor appointed a subcommittee to determine the title of the program, levels of awards, evaluation criteria, and review a draft application. The subcommittee members met last Tuesday. Those members include Vice Mayor Jim Biendo, Councilman Richard Alton, and Councilmember Skip Hall. Discussed at that meeting were the parameters of the program itself. The subcommittee determined that awards would be capped at $10,000 per application, including in-kind services. For example, if an agency comes to the city and has an application request for $10,000 in cash, but they also would like to have $2,000 in-kind services, be it public safety, facility usage, anything like that, that actually is then considered a $12,000 application, and so the committee would then determine at what level to make that award. All funds will be made available on an invoice or reimbursement basis. There will be no upfront cash presented to an agency that is awarded funding. Again, all applicants must be either a 501c3 organization or partner with a 501c3 nonprofit organization. This allows us to have transparency in the program and have proper accounting mechanisms in place. Applicants must state the estimated number of surprise residents who will benefit from their program. This will allow us to determine to help get the most bang for our buck for surprise residents, if you will. And the subcommittee will review applications and make recommendations to the full council. When I was before you in April, there was some discussion about how the award determinations would be made, and it was determined by the subcommittee that the subcommittee would be the ones to make to do the review and make the recommendations to council. And then full council would have the opportunity to make the final award determinations. The subcommittee also discussed the timeline for how this program would roll out. It was agreed that advertisement of the program would begin on July 1st. There will be a press release sent out. We'll work with each of your offices to ensure that information goes out through your listservs, and we'll have information available on the city's internet site. Applications will also be available beginning July 1st. The application deadline will be 6 p.m. Tuesday, September 3rd. They'll either need to be dropped off by that time, emailed by that time, or postmarked by that time. After that, the subcommittee will do the review and forward those recommendations to the City Council, with anticipated award announcements being October 1st. This concludes my brief presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Biondo.
Thank you. I'd like to, first of all, thank Jessica. Between last Tuesday and then the compilation of the board materials, of the council materials on Thursday, she pulled together that full application packet. So, Jessica, we very much appreciate what you did. The process that Jessica outlined is somewhat similar to the process that we had with the board's commission's funding requests, where all applications will be available for all council in the grants office as well as in the office of mayor and council. So any council member who wants to view those following that deadline of receipt date certainly is welcome to do that. Then the subcommittee will meet and review all the applications and then make a recommendation subsequently to council. So again, thank you, Jessica, for your work.
Councilmember Mankiewicz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question on how the funds will be provided. You say on an invoice or reimbursement basis. I'm concerned that if someone doesn't have to go personally into pocket, that they can indeed present an invoice, and if it gets processed and honored properly, that they don't really have to put everything on their own credit card or something like that. If it's a surprise resident that's actually doing it, for instance.
Madam Chair, council member, you're absolutely right. We need, if we have an invoice, then we can take care of payment then. But what that will help prevent is if for some unforeseen reason an event that has been awarded is unable to take place, then we can still track those dollars, those taxpayer dollars, appropriately.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Yeah, good point, Leo. I just want to make a comment about Jessica. Thank you for pulling all this together, but also want to compliment Vice Mayor Biondo for the way he handled the meeting, had it organized, and also Councilmember Alton's input. I think it was a really healthy discussion. I think we got some things really worked out, and it was because of the participation of Councilmember Alton and Vice Mayor Biondo, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. I just have one question on the process. Is the anticipation for the process to occur annually or biannually?
Madam Chair, members, that was discussed by the council by the subcommittee, and this first award is I believe going to be an annual basis, and then we are going to align it with the CDBG process on an annual basis. However, that would be the subcommittee and the council's purview to determine if you want to try to split it up into a biannual basis.
Great, thank you. That's great. So at this time then, we don't have any action on this item, but I too want to add my thanks to the subcommittee for coming to a really rational process that makes a lot of sense, and I think will serve a lot of residents of Surprise much better than previous attempts to dole out some assistance on behalf of our citizens. So thank you all for participating. Next item.
Consideration and action on Resolution 2013-70, a resolution entering into a memorandum of understanding with Southwest Gas Corporation to provide for the continuation of the terms and conditions of the existing franchise agreement.
Madam Chair, members of City Council, good afternoon again. This presentation will actually cover items number 14 and 15. As you may recall, last week, Tuesday, we presented to you the recommended Southwest Gas franchise agreement. We went through it in some detail, so I'll just do a very quick overview this evening. As you may recall, Southwest Gases have an existing franchise agreement with the City of Surprise. It does allow them to maintain and operate its gas system within the city's public right-of-way. It saved them some cost from going out and having to acquire that right-of-way on their own. The proposed franchise agreement is for a term of 25 years. It includes two provisions that will generate revenue for the City of Surprise and for the ratepayers. That's a 2% of gross revenues on a quarterly basis, and also a new program, which is a 2% Southwest Gas Capital Expenditures Fund for major capital projects that would happen in the City of Surprise. It's a very innovative and economically efficient way to process those expenses. I do want to point out to the residents looking in that there's some value to the City of Surprise. Clearly, we do realize in franchise fees from Southwest Gas about $300,000 each and every year. So again, it is somewhat lucrative for the City of Surprise. The agreement is very consistent with other agreements adopted by Arizona cities such as Scottsdale, Tempe, and Avondale. So we're very comparable to those communities. Keep in mind also that the current agreement does expire on October 13th. The MOU that's in your packet provides for the extension of the existing agreement until such time that it can go to referendum on November 6th. So that's why you have the two different actions in your packet this evening. Shauna Ellis and Kevin Thompson are here for Southwest Gas if you have any questions for them. Otherwise, staff continues to recommend approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, remember I mentioned about the council notification?
Yes.
I didn't see that in the agreement.
The agreement specifically calls out that Southwest Gas has to, whenever they do any type of work within the city's right-of-way, they have to notify the City of Surprise. So we'll make sure that notice comes to you.
But with all due respect, Jeff, I would like them to notify the council person.
Okay.
Because that hasn't worked in the past.
Okay.
Okay? We really need to know this, and I don't want to rely on, everybody tries to do a good job, but sometimes that doesn't work.
Okay.
And then we're tearing up the road, and we got residents asking us questions, and we don't know, and it puts us so I would like that, and I asked for that last week, and I read through it, and I didn't see it, so
Very good.
if we could please put that in. City, including a council member for the area with which the work is being done.
We can amend that agreement on the spot right now as long as city attorneys, because we understand what the recommendation is.
And just through the chair, you need this approved tonight, is that correct,
Yep.
Jeff? So we will have to do a motion to amend. We'll need to identify that paragraph, and then if you want to take a break, we can do that in about 5 minutes.
You think that will take, well, actually, we'll continue to ask questions while you might craft that amendment. Councilmember Alton.
Yes, thank you. Not only, Jeff, that the council member that is in the area that is affected by the construction or reconstruction or whatever, that all council members be notified.
Yeah.
So that we can all, and I don't know if Skip, if you had made that clear enough, but I would like to make that clear that all of us be notified.
That's fine, because it could affect more than one.
Certainly.
Sure.
Certainly.
I'm fine with that.
Thank you.
I think that's appropriate. So that's simple, all council members. So are there any other questions while Ms. Leslie is working on an amendment? Any other questions? Anything else you would like to add, Mr. Mahaley?
No, I have nothing else. Thank you.
And Mayor, you can seek a motion to approve the MOU, which is the first item, and then the second item is the contract itself.
Okay. So item number 14, we can go ahead. Okay. Yeah. That was a quiet thumbs up. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? There's a motion made and seconded to approve item number 14, Resolution 2013-70, as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
I need Councilmember Villanueva. Thank you very much. Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you.
And item 15 is consideration and action on Resolution 2013-71. I'll read the item. This is finding and declaring the continuation of a grant of a franchise beneficial for the city and ordering the question as to whether a franchise is granted to Southwest Gas Corporation and be submitted to the voters on November 5th.
Well, let's Skip make a motion.
I think Skip was.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Misty. I move to amend, to approve this amendment regarding notices, right?
I move to amend. I'm just going to whisper it in your ear.
Okay.
You're going to say it. I move to amend.
I move to amend
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A,
Southwest franchises.
Southwest Franchise Agreement,
Section 13 notices
Section 13, notices,
to indicate the notice to the city
to indicate the notice to the city
will be to the mayor and city council
will be given to the mayor and city council
at the address indicated.
at the address indicated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to amend the franchise language as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll.
Now he's got to make a full motion.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor?
Thank you.
And then you'll have to move to amend move to adopt the resolution as amended.
Right. Councilmember Hall, would you like to?
Yeah, I move to approve Resolution 2013-71.
As amended.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 2013-71 as amended.
Well, Mayor, I'm sorry, we'll need to have a voice vote because we already used that as a voting.
Sorry. This is a voice vote. So
Yes.
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? This item is passed.
Thank you. Item 16, presentation and approval of Resolution 2013-66, the city's comprehensive financial policies.
Hellman, I thought we got rid of you last week. Being that this is
You
your-
have not.
No, I thought this was going to be your last time last week being the CFO, but here you are again.
Here I
So why
am.
not? You might as well just clean this one up.
Two more items, if that's all right. In fact, I was just talking with Bob a few minutes ago, and Bob, no, really, you can go up there and do this, Bob, if you would like. And I really appreciate again Bob coming in and Bob's support. I think you're going to have a great opportunity to get to know him, as the months and years go by, and you can probably notice a bit of an excitement in my voice. That this is the last time that I'll likely be coming to you as the dual role of CFO and city manager. Madam Chair, members of the council, what you have in front of you is the discussion and the resolution that we had last week relative to your budget policies. These are policies that the city has adopted, that you adopted a couple years ago. We try in each year. They are not necessarily or on particular part of the budget process, but we like to update those annually, through the budget cycle to make sure, that we as staff and that the city are following the policy directions that you have. Many of the changes that you saw, in the presentation and the packets that we gave to you last week, a lot of those changes, you had a lot of administrative types of changes. There were 3 changes that I believe that were very noteworthy. There were 2 additions to the policies and 1 change to the policy, and specifically the 2 additions were the FTE positions. The count for FTEs is by department in the general fund and by total in all other funds. In relative to the city budget as a whole, it is adopted in the general fund by department, by project, in the capital funds, and by fund total for all other funds. Those two policies are practices that you already are doing, but again, we want to incorporate those into policies to help ensure that we're always following the same practice consistently as the years go by. More importantly, there actually was one change, to the policy that was important, to a policy that was important to note, and that was relative to your SLIDs. Per the council policy direction, we did change the SLID reserve balance policy from 10% to 5%. So with that, I'd refer you back to our presentation last year, and if you have any questions, last week. It seems like a year, doesn't it? We'd be happy. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Was that a slip?
Councilmember Alton.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Chris, I would like to see the FTE count for the whole city rather than department. And I think that gives us a perspective from a 30,000-foot level as to where we are, and then break it out for departments. I think that if we're going to set policies and if we're going to do an overview, we'd like to see all that.
That is in the budget document. We'd be happy to get that over to you and highlight those out for you. But that is how.
But I'd like to put that in policy.
Okay, understood.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve item number 16, Resolution 2013-66 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, Councilmember Alton?
Yeah, excuse me. Did my comments make any difference? It's being we're accepting it as presented, so it's not as amended.
Member Alton, I believe that the policy that you want to amend can be amended by Mr. Hillman, if I'm not correct.
It might be more of a reporting structure. How we create the budget itself relative to FTEs. We list each one of those by department. But from a reporting perspective, if I understood what Councilmember Alton was looking for, we can provide those reports that not only have it broken down by each individual department in the general fund, but we can add up those totals as well. And all those totals are in there. So from a reporting perspective, we can provide that over to you. If I understood what Councilmember Alton was requesting, they are broken down by department, but then they are totaled and summarized in the general fund, completely as well. So that way you have that total information already provided. But how we break it out in the budget is we break out the FTEs by department in the general fund, so you can see how those are broken out by department, and then it's all summarized in the end, so you can see what the total is.
Councilmember Alton, did you have a question?
I did. Thank you, Mayor. So you're going to provide that information to us? I have not heard that yet.
Yes, we'll be happy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you.
The next item is staff presentation regarding the fiscal year 2013 budget status report through April 2013.
Madam Chair, members of the council, this is the last time you'll have to hear from me, I promise, relative to the finances. And this is, again, per the policy that you just adopted, your staff will be presenting to you each month the monthly budget report. We concentrate on our revenues and expenses, and we try and keep you up to speed on how we're doing. Overall, as you recall from last month, we're continuing, honestly, our good news. Our revenues are higher, and we'll walk through all the specifics here, but our revenues are higher than what we had budgeted for. Our expenses are lower than what we budgeted for, and we continue to move towards our goal of financial resiliency. All in all, I believe we've had a very good fiscal year. Again, this report is for the month of April. We are ending our fiscal year this week. And relative to our projections and all things moving forward, we do anticipate a surplus at the end of this fiscal year, which will hope that will help us to achieve and hopefully exceed the reserve requirement and the direction that the council gave us relative to a fully funded reserve within 2 years, and we believe again that we'll be able to achieve that within 1 year. Again, we'll know for sure next January or February when we receive our final fiscal year 13 audit, but that will just continue the good financial news that the city has had. So financially, it is a very good time to be in the city of Surprise. And as the mayor said before, it's time to plan our day, and I look forward to working with you as the council and with Bob in creating that plan. But for the month of April, as you can see, our revenues are up 3.1% greater than budgeted. This is coming in related to the building permits. We do have a good, strong permitting. I'm losing my words here. We're doing good in building houses. How about that? I'm trying to use fancy language. We're higher than budgeted. We budgeted a lot less than what we're actually bringing in, and that's a good thing. Also, increased participation in recreation programs. We talked a little bit about that in our last budget cycle. There are more folks, more of your residents are coming out and using the existing programs, and that's a good thing.
More people having fun.
Yeah, more people are having fun, and that's a good thing for your residents to have. It's a very good thing. It's also increased in local sales tax. Our sales taxes are up. Again, most notably, as you see from those monthly summaries that we ship out to you, most notably in our bars and restaurants, a lot more people, and that's a good sign that the economy is improving. The people are going out there and you're spending their money in the bars and restaurants and eating out more. Expenses are 3.5%, less than budgeted at this point in time in April. However, there are going to be some seasonal components there in some timing of service agreements that we are anticipating. We don't anticipate that 3.5% to work through the remainder of the fiscal year. We're still anticipating to be below budget, but there's going to be some timing components there. That's why you're seeing a good percentage below where we need to be, specifically the jail services for police. We'll be sending our check over to Sheriff Joe here in a little while, helping to pay for those services. Some of the software and telephone services over in IT as well. We do have some varied savings, including unemployment contributions from human resources and outside legal services from our legal department. We had budgeted for a number of dollars there. We've been able to keep most of those expenses in-house and have not had to use those outside expenses as anticipated, and that's a good thing. The year-to-date vacancy savings, you may recall at the beginning of the fiscal year, we were a little bit behind schedule, and we worked very diligently to maintain and work through our vacancy savings. We have been able to achieve our vacancy savings and even increase that over and above what we had originally budgeted. The resources, graphically, it's always good to show how graphically we're doing. You can see fiscal year 12 to fiscal year 13 adopted, and currently what we have for fiscal year 13 actuals. We had budgeted 4.5% increase, from fiscal year 13 over fiscal year 12, and right now we're about 7.5% above fiscal year 12, about 3.1% again, over what we had budgeted for fiscal year 13. You can see how it's coming in, by month. We are tracking well, anticipating as we do each year how those revenues coming in. So again, graphically, you can see that we're tracking pretty well. Again, we're over and above what we had anticipated, overall. Sales tax. You can see how much higher sales tax is over what we had budgeted. Again, that is a good sign of the improving economy. There is a trend there. I will note that you can see, going from December, January, in February, we're beginning to see a bit of a downtick. It's beginning to level up. We're going to keep an eye on that. We want to see how that plays out a little bit. Again, they are higher than what we budgeted, but sales taxes are coming down a little bit. You could see a general trend going up through December. We're going to keep an eye on that just to see how things are going to play out. We'll keep you guys up to speed on that. Going to construction sales tax, again, the first $1.25 million of your construction sales tax by your policy goes into the operations of the general fund. The remainder goes into your capital projects. You can see that we are much higher than anticipated. Again, that is due to the significant increase in the housing permits over and above what we had budgeted, and another major component there is the 303 construction, which is helping. Now that will go away as that construction project winds down here over the next 18 to 24 months. So we'll keep that in mind as well relative to our projections. Resources by category, you can see how everything is playing out. The sales taxes versus the state shared revenue versus charges for other services. Again, charges for other services are going to be the permitting revenue that we have for the city. Property taxes, franchise fees, and transfers are pretty much coming in right as budgeted. Moving to the expenditure side, how we're spending the money, you can see in fiscal year 12, at this point in time, the actual is $56.8 million. We had budgeted to be at $57.4 million, but our actual is $55.4. So we're below budget, and we're actually below fiscal year 12 as well for our expenses. And again, that was by as best we could by design. Our 2-year plan is we limited and we kept our expenses in check. And so by keeping those expenses in check and actually spending less than what we have budgeted so far, we're sticking to that 2-year plan, and that is a good thing. By month, you can see we're tracking pretty well. As you can see, there are going to be a couple of months where we do have 3 pay periods, so you're going to see some spikes relative to those pay periods, and then the end of the year accruals that we always see at the end of June. But all in all, we're still tracking very well relative to our expenses. By category, you can see, personnel, you can see the vacancy savings. Again, that's what we budgeted for, and we've been able to achieve that goal. Supplies is right where it needs to be. In services is a little bit less, but again, you're going to have some of those timing components that will be coming into play here in the next couple of months as we wrap up the fiscal year. This is the fun slide that we always talk about. This is sort of the wrap-up. You can see for fiscal year 13, we no longer have the unaudited. It is now actual because you just passed the fiscal year 12 audit. You are beginning fiscal year 13 with $4.5 million. You may recall before this we were projecting a $500,000 beginning fund balance in fiscal year 12 relative to the policy decisions and the surpluses that we were able to achieve in fiscal year 12. We ended up with a $4.5 million unreserved fund balance. You can see the revenues versus expenses and what we're projecting. The ending balance of about $14.3 million per year policy. For fiscal year 14, you need to be about $12.5 million. For fiscal year 13, you're just about $11.5 million. So all in all, we still feel, and we'll get the final numbers again next January, February, but we feel that we will have met and even exceeded your policy direction of a fully funded reserve balance within 1 year as opposed to 2 years. So with that is the monthly budget report for the month of April. I've appreciated doing the last 3 months, and I look forward to Bob giving you the monthly budget report in May.
Councilmember Hall, I know you have a question on the fun index.
On the what?
On the fun index.
Oh yeah, the fun index. Yes, I think we're having more fun around here. Chris, I had a question on the beginning balance. Why did I have the beginning balance at 5,500,000?
For fiscal year 12?
Yeah, in other words, in my notes, I had $5,493,708 as a beginning balance.
We have been working with, the most recent number that we had was about 4.7. When the final audit came out, so there was one additional change which dropped it down to 4.5. But we've been showing a projected $4.7 million for the last couple of months. I'd be happy to sit down with you to find out.
Why don't we get together?
I'll be happy to sit down and we'll work through that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to receive and file the FY 2013 April year-to-date budget status report.
Second.
There's been a motion made and approved to adopt item number 17 as presented. If there's no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous 6 yes vote, Mayor.
All right. I detect a need for a brief break on behalf of everyone up here at the dais, so we will take I'm sorry, Terry, we'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back, and we'll get right back at it. So this council is now in recess. We'll call this meeting back to order, and first item.
Item number 20, update and discussion regarding the Water Subcommittee.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. We established the Water Committee about 3 months ago, and because all of us on the council were concerned about it. So the mayor set up a subcommittee to really look at this issue, and it's a big issue, and it's going to take a lot of thought and a lot of brain power. But I think we got some pretty good brain power on our committee, and so if we go to the first slide, Christine, you got it there?
Yes, purpose and scope. Or do you want the beginning one? There's nothing up there, though.
I think Jacob's going to have to. Okay, now go ahead.
Up the top. There you go.
There it goes.
There we go. Okay, so if we go to the first slide, Christine. In the May meeting, we talked about the purpose and scope and how we are going to discover the information, and we decided we're going to start at the federal level and work down. So we're going to go to the state, and then the Sun Corridor, then the West Valley, and then the city. And that's the way we're going to approach it. We're going to talk about not only water resources, but quality of water. And in the development of we wanted one of the end results to be for us as a city to have a total water management culture. And it really starts with us and our leadership. We also want to talk about, we wanted to get to water quantity. And water quantity, by that we mean it's got to be legally, physically, and continuously available. And we also want to talk about water quality and how we can achieve that. Go to the next slide. The committee members were myself, Councilmember John Williams, Councilmember Leo Mankiewicz, Ken Wright and Ken Hewitt are residents of Surprise, and they have a high interest in water. Jeff Mihalik, Assistant City Manager, Terry Lowe, the Interim Public Works Director, Christine, and Angela Lucci, who works with Christine. Right? Next slide. Our meeting plan is going to be a series of monthly meetings. We meet the second Thursday of every month from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. And this is the first council update. We'll have these quarterly. And the stakeholder roles, what we mean there is everybody in that meeting has a role. And there's going to be different questions and different points of view. We want to work through them, and we want to have guest speakers to bring perspectives about water. Then there's going to be the descending meeting topics. If we can go to the next slide, Christine, and then you can kind of start there and go through the topics for us, okay?
Our topic timeline, in May we met to go over an overview of the process and what we're going to go over and how we're going to do it. But then in June we started at the federal level, talked a little bit about the basin study, had a couple of guest speakers. The Department of Water Resources has committed to be a part of the process with us. And then August, this is going to change around a little bit because we got Grady Gamage to talk about the Sun Corridor, and then we're going to bump the active management areas and some of the groundwater stuff to the next.
You might say who Grady Gamage is, Christine.
Grady Gamage is a water attorney. He also teaches at ASU, and he's the author of the Watering the Sun Corridor report that was done on the AMAs.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Yes, if you
Better?
could.
There you go. So this is our timeline, and we'll be doing the quarterly council updates. I have those asterisks with a red mark. And, you know, as we go along, we're going to get into the City of Surprise issues, cost, you know, any of the variables or concerns that we might have from council members, from management, et cetera. And then in March, our intention is to have a council report and some recommendations and moving forward from there. The June meeting, again, we discussed the Bureau of Reclamation Basin Study. It was a study done on the 7 basin states, the upper and lower Colorado River basins, and they did a bunch of different model runs, but there was an average imbalance between the highest run, you know, considering climate and population growth and economic changes, and the lowest of about 3.2 million acre feet of water between those two. They looked at, you know, what adaptations and mitigation strategies they could use. They evaluated, I'm sorry, got caught up on that one. In our meeting, we also talked about the law of the Colorado River. We had Central Arizona Project come and talk about the project and also its connection with the basin. And in the basin, one of the things that is identified is the unmet demand in Arizona. The total unmet demands, the lowest is 242,900 acre feet, all the way up to 1.3 million acre feet.
And this is in 2060.
This is in 2060, going out from current. And then Central Arizona, which is where we're at, it's the 183,000 all the way up to 1.1 million acre feet. So the majority of that is here in the Central Arizona area. The basin study covers the 252,000 square miles. It supplies water to over 30 million people, and it irrigates nearly 4 million acres of land. The flows change, of course, on an annual basis depending on climate, et cetera, use, fallowing of ag, et cetera. And the flows have been, you know, as low as 5.4 million acre feet all the way to 24.3, depending on rain, et cetera. Future supplies and demands are uncertain, but, you know, based on tree studies, et cetera, they've come to some conclusions. Uh-oh, wrong way. In the 50-year change from 1960 to 2010, as you can see, as far as the population and acres of irrigated land, they've changed significantly. The physical system has changed. The natural system, unfortunately, hasn't changed all that much, so of course augmentation is going to be necessary at some point. And then some of the governance that has changed, there has been some activity in that area of including Arizona with the decree of Us First California, you know, some of the environmental acts and quality acts that have come to play. This is one of the critical aspects, and you hear talking about the Lake Mead 1,000 feet mark. There are some specific indicators on the vulnerability of the Colorado River, and one of them is the elevation of Lake Mead being less than 1,000 feet. And the other one, it's any one of these, but the other one has to do with the generation of power for a consecutive 3-year period, the 4,450 gigawatts a year. If it's consecutive for those 3 years, that could be a concern. And then total boating flow. So if the waters are low, there's going to be less boating, and that does have a meter on it where it could be a concern. Some of the actions that Arizona has taken, and this is one of the discussions that has been on the Colorado River Basin study that Arizona has proposed, is we've been doing a lot on conservation. We have been active in managing our waters. And very active. We have created the Groundwater Management Act of 1980. As a result of that, the Department of Water Resources was created to manage waters. And in the AMA, Arizona is one of the national leaders on conservation. We have mandatory conservation programs, and as you can see the percentages there, 89% of municipal users are under those mandatory programs, 39% of agriculture, and 61% of industrial. The Central Arizona Project and the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment Districts were created as a result of our actions. The Salt River Project, the Colorado River Compact, and internally with Department of Water Resources, some of the things that they realized early on was there had to be some requirements on assuring that water supply was available, adequate for the uses. One of the more recent ones is recharge and recovery. Where do we put the water and how do we take it out and make sure it's available for use where it's needed? The Arizona Water Banking Authority also is another fairly new one. You know, we have all this water coming down to us. How do we put it here and have it available for use, not just the recharge and recovery? So they created the banking authority for the excess water that was available to put it in the ground and then at some point divvy it up depending on the need. One of the things to identify here with water is, as you can see, as the population has increased, so has the gross domestic income, but the water use has decreased over the years, and that has to do with conservation, and this is a documentation or proof of that over from 1957 to 2010.
So, Christine, what's interesting about this is in 1980 is when the Groundwater Management Act was passed.
Yes, and those conservation activities show in this slide.
And with the increase in population going from a little over 2 million, is it a little over 2 million? Yeah, to over 6 million, the water use has actually gone down with 3 times the population.
Yes.
Which is, that, I mean, this graph right here is just is really something to me, impactful, in terms of what the state did to mitigate water use. And I think it's really, what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, it shows the money part of it, I guess, to show how you know, the economy has went up, but water use has went down, and that's still, we're still working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Hall, it may also account for the number of acres that were consumed that were previously agricultural that are now being consumed by individual homeowners.
That's right.
Yeah, that is a big part of it.
It's a part of it.
The Department of Water Resources, their role is to administer and enforce on the use of groundwater, you know, the groundwater codes and rights. They also, you know, just like in the basin study, they represent Arizona when dealing with the Colorado River, anything that has to do with the Colorado River. The Department of Water Resources represents the state. They oversee how the water resources are used by agriculture, by municipal, and they monitor it on an annual basis. They also represent Arizona in discussions on water rights on a federal level, not just dealing with the Colorado River, but anything beyond that for power or anything that has to do with water. Some of the changes and issues in the state that could have an impact on the city and the state as a whole, of course, the basin study, and now they're working in smaller groups to detail some of those results and find out, okay, you know, here's the specifics you put in here. We don't agree with this, or we do agree with this, and this is why. So they're getting to the documentation portion of that. The fourth management plan, in the Groundwater Management Act, there were 5 plans. It started in 1980, and each plan was 10 years with the exception of the last one, which is 5 years. We're going into the 4th, or we should be in the 4th, but it's currently under draft and being discussed. So that can have an impact on water permits and specifically conservation. The Water Resource Development Commission was a House bill that was passed, and a full study was done on water supply and demand
and that was in 2010, right, Christine?
Yes.
2010.
Yeah. And some recommendations went forward, but I think it's sitting there. No actions have been taken, but some recommendations have been made. to move forward. So Arizona is prepared on what we need to do to augment our water resources. The ADWater, which stands for Acquisition, Delivery, and Development of New Waters, was a 3-year program that was done through Central Arizona Project. It had stakeholders from municipal governments, tribal governments, developers. It just had a large group of people that met for 3 years to go over, if we were to augment water, how would we pay for that water and how would we get that water to Arizona? So that is also a plan that's sitting on a shelf, and it got put there because there are some wheeling specifics or wheeling legalities with the Central Arizona Project that need to be worked out with the Bureau of Reclamation and Department of Interior. So those are currently being discussed before we pull that off the shelf and go to the next level. The new water quality rules, we all remember the arsenic rule and the impact that that had on the state. Well, there's other rules that are behind it that could be similar to that. They're talking fluoride. Perchlorate really doesn't have an impact on us. Hexchlor, that could, the chrome 6 is what it is, hexchrome. But we don't know yet until the next rules come down the pike. Air quality rules, the Navajo Generating Station and other generating stations have had to face some new air quality rules, and that can increase the power costs, which will increase the water cost. And the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, the plan of operation, the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District was developed to replenish for those water users that don't have rights to replenish for themselves. So like EPCOR is an example of that. The properties in EPCOR area, Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District replenishes for them. So they have to go out and acquire the rights and put it in the ground. So every 10 years they have to submit a plan of operation to the Department of Water Resources on how they're going to do that. Their current plan is under review. I'm representing the West Valley cities on some of our concerns and our issues with that. And as I did with the ADWater program as well. And then Central Arizona Project Recharge Recovery, again, they're where the water is recharged. Currently there are 4 recharge sites, large recharge sites that Central Arizona Project owns, and one just opened, I think, last year. So there's only 3. One of them's way out in Tonopah. So one of the questions is, if we're putting a lot of water out there, how do you get it and put it back into the canal and bring it to Surprise, Mesa, or whoever might need it? So that is a plan that's still, that's been discussed and has not been developed yet, but is on the radar. And then the current and future water quantity and quality requirements or plans as we go forward. Some of the variables that Surprise has control and doesn't have control over is how much water we store, what infrastructure we put in, where we allow reclaimed water uses to be used or stored, and then our permitted capacity, meaning how much water we can pull out of the ground and how much we can put back in the ground and where. Mm-hmm. What we can't control is costs, the changes in infrastructure, and I put aging and degradation because of our Vado Zone recharge wells. They actually degrade versus age. And then demand and our growth, the demand in water as a result of that. Is water going to be available? We don't really have control of that, whether effluent or CAP or new waters. And then permitted capacity is also one that we don't have control because we have to apply for those permitted capacities, and we may not always get approval for what we plan for. And then just briefly going over our August meeting, this has changed. We're going to primarily discuss the Sun Corridor and bump the Arizona Active Management Areas back, although those are part of the discussion of the Sun Corridor report. And then September is probably where we'll discuss more of the assured water supply and AMA. And then we'll get into some of the West Valley issues specific, because the West Valley is unique in the respect that we're primarily groundwater. With the exception of the White Tanks plant that just came online not too long ago, it's primarily been groundwater, and Buckeye's groundwater, some of the others out far southwest are still groundwater. And the Westmark, we'll be talking about Westmark, so Skip's very familiar with that.
And then West Cap's got their grant.
West Cap's got the grant, and it is specifically for the West Salt River Valley, and it will be looking at climate change, the water supply and demand, again, where water is used, stored, where things are needed as far as water resources go, and looking at the different variabilities of availability and climate changes and some of the political changes, costs, etc.
Thank you very much. First of all, Skip, and to all the members of the committee, I want to thank you for putting together a really strong effort at trying to dig down into a very complicated issue. And I think I picked the right people who really want to dig into this very complicated issue. It is complex, and Christina, your wonderful staffer to help us walk through this. This is a big one, and it's very important to us if we're going to make certain that we have control of our destiny as a city. And so I'm really glad that you're taking this issue very seriously, and I appreciate all the work that's put forward into the committee so far, and for you're bringing this back before the council to educate us as you go, because again, it is a very complex issue, and so this is one of those places when we get to a point where an action item might come before the council. You need to have the background education before we can take that kind of a vote, because it'll be a very important vote. And so I appreciate that. This is a big item to wrap your head around, and so I'm grateful to all of you on board. So with that, are there any questions or comments on this item? Councilmember Villanueva.
I just want is the water district involved in this at all?
Maricopa Water District?
Yeah.
Not at this time. As far as like West Caps, we have discussed bringing them into the group to start discussing more of a full West Valley discussion, becoming more of a watershed group versus just dealing with CAP resources.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Again, I encourage all the council members to take this home, read it, memorize it, make notes, and if you have any questions on the data that's been provided for you, then please submit them to the subcommittee. They can help you out with answers that might arise if you read this document. So thank you very much, Christina. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Christine.
Item.
Consideration and action on Resolution 2013-44, resolution for an intergovernmental agreement with Arizona Department of Transportation for the installation of fiber optics along the 303.
Thierry?
Madam Chair, members of council, I have no presentation tonight. We discussed this last week. This is a resolution for the installation of fiber along 303 to control the intersections, the surface street intersections that cross the 303. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
I move to approve Resolution 2013-44.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve Resolution 2013-44 as presented. Are there any questions? Seeing none, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item.
Consideration and action on Resolution 2013-73, repayment of unallowable expenditure to the U.S. Treasury for ARRA grant.
Madam Chair, members of council, again, no presentation. We spoke about this earlier this month. This is the repayment of a portion of the ARRA grant that we received, and we will subsequently receive that back when we enter into an ESCO later on. This is for the repayment only.
Entertain a motion. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 20. I move to approve Resolution 2013-73.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the item as presented. There's a question. Councilmember Alton.
Thank you. Dear, Mr. Lowe, how much money does this represent?
The 67 that we're pending, that we are paying back?
Yeah.
I'd say less than 10% of what we received in total.
How much money is it?
We received $812,000. We are having to pay back 67.
$81,000?
No, 67,000.
67,000.
That's correct.
And for the people that maybe have just tuned in and didn't see last week's workshop, what is the reason for the payback? Why was it not allowable expense?
When we sought the use of the funds for the project we are proposing, they approved the project. They allowed us to move forward with the expenditure.
They mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Department of Energy.
Okay.
And at the time, we made the purchase and then realized our own fiscal issues and moving forward with some sort of financing to leverage these funds as well as leverage other funds from APS as well as our own funds to be paid back to a third party over a period of time. Our fiscal situation did not allow us to do that, and so the Department of Energy deemed that expense because we did not proceed forward with the project in its entirety, determined that an unallowable expense.
Is that
Councilmember Alton?
Thank you. Is that a black mark on the city of Surprise when the Department of Energy comes back to us and says this is not allowable?
I don't believe I can answer that completely. I believe by us paying it back in a timely fashion, as we have, or as we will be, that it will not be a black mark for us. We were in good standings throughout the project and completed the remainder of the funds on time.
Councilmember Alton, I may be able to assist with that. And I do believe it's fairly normal kind of thing that happens in grants. I do believe that this is in relation to the match, since we were unable to accommodate the match to finalize the project, and we're just paying that portion back that we could not match in order to enable the project to be fully completed. But I do believe that we did maintain the property that the lights that we purchased with the money, and then we can install them at a later date.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any further questions? The clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous, 6 yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item.
Consideration and action on Resolution 2013-57, an intergovernmental agreement with Arizona Department of Transportation for administering the federal funds for the construction of the paved dirt shoulders project.
Madam Chair, members of council, the resolution before you is for approval to enter an agreement with ADOT for them to administer the federal funds we received as part of a CMAG congestion mitigation grant for paved dirt shoulders, which essentially is what it is. We're going to be paving some shoulders within the city that are unimproved, and in order to reduce our dust mitigation.
I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, Terry, is this going to be done when? This summer?
It will most likely be, I believe, the second half of this fiscal year into next fiscal year. What this allows us to do is then obligate the federal funds come their fiscal year, which is two months
September
beyond
30th,
yeah.
October 1st.
So we'll obligate the funds. ADOT will enter into bidding, and then we'll start.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2013-57.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve item number 23, resolution number 2013-57 as presented. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item.
Consideration and action authorizing the city manager to enter into service agreement professional services agreement with Goodwin and Marshall for the design of the Martin Acres drainage improvements in the amount of $67,500.
Mr. Lowe.
Madam Chair, members of council, I have a small presentation to update you on Martin Acres, as well as to bring back some of the questions that we heard when we presented during workshop. The Martin Acres area, if you recall, is up the US 60. And when we last met, there was some concern about how the US 60 would impact this area. Before you is sort of a timeline of how the different projects came into play. Originally, the US 60 was constructed in the 1940s, and I got a great aerial of that here in a second. Widening occurred in the 90s, at which time the flood control was involved. They provided comments to the widening project, and the report found that culvert extension, which there was culverts already there from the 40s, did not pose any adverse effects to Martin Acres. Martin Acres development, as I think we discussed last time, was developed in the 70s, and then the city annexed them in the 90s. The photo on the left is a 1949 aerial of Grand Avenue, and you can actually see the floodway there. That is the darker area, which shows vegetation, and it necks down right there at Grand Avenue, and then works its way into Martin Acres. The picture on the right is the culvert that was installed in the widening project in the late 90s. That is a 60-foot box culvert and then they channelized the water better than it had been in 1949. And so just a recap of the project, we're looking at defining a level of protection of about 5 years, 6-hour event, or a 1.7-inch rain. The design cost, which is before you tonight, is $67,500. Total construction is $782 for FY15. The project will seek flood control small project assistance funding of $250,000, which will augment some of the city's cost. Just a reminder, this does not pull Martin Acres out of the floodplain, but what it does is alleviate the everyday rain, the rain that occurs north of Martin Acres that sometimes makes its way down and ends up flooding them anyway. And so this is the extent of the project. Really quickly, the red line will show how we are going to channelize that flow down Citrus, take it across to Norwich, and back to its natural flows. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you, Mayor. Terry, a couple quick questions. What is hydraulic freeboard? Is that sheet flow?
Hydraulic freeboard?
Yeah.
That is the flow from north that sheet flows across the land that's currently underdeveloped.
Okay. And then what is HECRAS design? HECRAS design. What is that?
That is HECRAS is a computer program that models
What's
flows.
A computer program?
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you what the acronym stands for, so I'll have to get
That's
back
all
to
right.
you on that.
It's a computer program that, because the end result's going to be a topo map, right?
For
one
us,
of them?
no, the end result is going to be design documents to channelize this flow.
But aren't they going to do contour map also?
In the area that's being corrected, we won't look at the overall area in of itself. No.
Okay, but this software program takes into consideration.
It will calculate
cubic feet of flow, blah blah blah.
It'll give you your Qs or your flows over the entire area as it makes it to the area where it outfalls to where we receive it. So it's the program number itself. I do not know how to use it.
Okay.
But,
all right. Thanks.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Biondo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the effort, Terry, to get some mitigation up there. As you know, those residents have really struggled with some issues up there. So thanks for bringing this forward. I think it will help, certainly in the short term.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
This is an item for approval. Vice Mayor, would you like to make a motion?
I move to approve service agreement 13-128.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve item number 24, which is service agreement number 13-128. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item.
Consideration and action regarding the employment agreement for the city attorney, appointing Misty Leslie to the position of city attorney.
April?
Madam Chair, members of the council, last week staff received direction from council to enter into negotiations with Misty Leslie for purposes of filling the city attorney vacancy. I'm pleased to report that we were successful. Attached to this agenda item is the employment agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Alton?
Me. Thank you, Mayor. Do you have an attachment on the employment agreement? Because people at home can't see it.
Would you like to just walk through the employment agreement? Is that?
I will be glad to, yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
The employment agreement between Ms. Leslie and the City of Surprise is a standard form that was reviewed for us by outside counsel. It has a limited term of 4 years, so the contract is available to our in force until June 30th, 2017. Direction from council was to come within budget for the FY14. I'm happy to report that we are below budget in the salary of $162,000 a year with Ms. Leslie. There is a severance agreement on the term of employment, which is consistent with other employment agreements that you have with the appointed officials. Is there anything in particular you wanted
What
to?
is the severance agreement?
The severance agreement is 3 months if there is with no cause. If there was with cause, there's not a severance. 6 month, I'm sorry, 6 month. It's the 30 days is what I'm getting a little confused with, but it's a 6 month severance, and the contract ends June 30th, 2017. And if you intend to not renew the contract, we are obligated to give 90 days notice, 3 months notice of that.
Any further questions on the agreement? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the employment agreement for City Attorney Misty Leslie for the position of City Attorney. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. And finally, we have a public hearing.
Consideration and action on Resolution 2013-59, a resolution reconsidering the unapproving FS 11-312 entitled General Plan Update, including a minor text amendment to the General Plan 2035.
You can tell the planning department goes through a lot of files. Very good.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Could you
Vicky
push
Arbeiter
it-
with
could you
the
push that microphone?
Yes, with the
really
Community and
up?
Economic Development Department. Is that
Thank
better?
you. Thanks, much better.
Okay, well, I am back in front of you tonight after coming forth in May 14th, with the general plan update, which you adopted at that time. And as I mentioned on that night, as part of the state requirements, we sent the plan to the Attorney General's office. And the good news was that very quickly they responded, only 3 days after. Let me just skip to the next slide here. So by May 17th, we had personal contact with the Attorney General's office, and they had one minor comment relating to our language with Luke Air Force Base. So we are here tonight to process that minor amendment and to go over that language. And just to point out that we did already have a lot of language on Luke Air Force Base in the plan, and at no point did the Attorney General make any assumption that we were not supportive of Luke Air Force Base. They did note that we had this in the document in 3 different places: in the development chapter land use element, where we talk about our dedication to ensuring land use compatibility under the APZ and noise contours. And again, on the land use map, we display the APZ and noise contours. And in our airport preservation land use type, we specifically define what is an appropriate land use, and also that we need to be in compliance with the state statutes 28-8481. The specific language that was added is something that I was explained that the Attorney General, the specific Attorney General, is now requesting that all cities and counties, when they update their zoning ordinance or general plan, in order to ensure consistency across the region, include this specific state statute language in the plan. So this was the only minor comment. Technically, they didn't say we were not in compliance, but they did ask us to add this in. So we are here tonight just to show you this is the language they'd like us to add. And if you approve this language tonight, on June 25th, we will quickly shoot it back to the Attorney General's office, get their approval. Jeff and I both received a letter stating that if this was adopted with the language that we put forth, that they would approve it. We'll go forward with the rest of our process, have the media announcements, the waiting period, and again, be on the general election in November. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Alton.
Thank you. Could you go back a couple slides, please? That one. No new residential development within a high noise and accident potential zones, as depicted on the land use map on page 29. I didn't see that. Is allowed unless the subject property had a building permit, had a residence constructed, or was approved for a residential development in a development plan prior to December 31, 2004. Where is the city center with this? Jeff, you may want to come up. Where are we with getting the approval from two different entities to allow construction within our city center?
Councilman Alton, members of council.
Councilman Alton, I'm going to, this is not on the agenda. The issue of city center is not in the J-loose lines, is not in the potential accident zone. This is related to land that is not that is within the J-loose lines and the accident zone that is not related to the city center.
May I reply?
Councilman Alton.
Thank you. The landing zone, or the accident landing zone, is called Luke 1, or what's the acronym? We got 2 and we got 1. This is 1.
Auxiliary.
Aux 1. This is Aux 1 around here.
No.
Aux 2.
Councilmember Alton.
Councilman, members of council, I understand Councilman Alton's concern. He may be referring to the deed restrictions around this property.
Yes.
I want to be very clear about this. The language that's been requested by the Attorney General's office only applies to that language underneath the noise contours. This property, if I can just finish real quick, this property here at City Center is completely outside of those noise contours. So this amendment has nothing to do with this property whatsoever.
I understand, but because we're Aux 2, 3, 2, because we are in an accident potential zone.
Through the chair.
Member.
I think that some good fact clarification would be appropriate, but to stay on point. The subject that is to be presented tonight, that is agendized, is a public hearing on the minor amendment, whether or not this change is going to be approved by council. And that's it. That's the only thing that's on the agenda. The Aux 3 land, which is the land surrounding City Hall, is not impacted in any way, shape, or form by this language or the requirement by the Attorney General to add this language to the general plan.
Thank you very much, Leslie.
Thank you. Councilmember Mankiewicz. Thank you. All right. So And the motion here would be to approve this language amendment. And so I will entertain that
I
motion.
move to approve Resolution 2013-59.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the amendment and embodied in Resolution 2013-59. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is call to the public. Has anyone signed up to speak with us this evening?
Yes, we do have Ab Jackson.
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you open a public hearing with regard to that last item?
I'm sorry, I did not. We'll go back and try that again. We will open the public hearing for item number 27, consideration and action on the resolution 2013 regarding the reconsideration of approving FS 11312 entitled General Plan Update. This hearing is now open. Does anyone wish to come before the council on this item? Does anyone wish to come before the council on this item? Seeing no one wishes to come before this council on this item, this public hearing is now closed.
And not that I want you to redo it, but yes, I do.
At this time, I will accept a motion.
So moved.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve item number 27 as presented, which is resolution number 20.
Second.
2013-59. And we will have to do a voice vote because we already used up our mechanical vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? This item is approved. And so now, Ab, if you would please come forward in the call to the public.
Good evening, Mayor Walcott, Vice Mayor Biondo, Council, Mr. Hillman, and friends. I'm Ab Jackson, President and CEO of the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce, with a few announcements and one special announcement. First, thanks to the city for your partnership on a very successful procurement fair. We had tremendous feedback. I look forward to another fair with you next year. You have heard earlier that this month the council has the chamber has entered into an agreement with Parks and Rec and the city to handle the surprise store through our chamber facilities. We hope to have all the details worked out by next month and merchandising to begin as quickly as possible. I want to invite all of you to come by and buy a cap from me, only $50 to members of the council. June was a very busy month for the chamber. Over 200 members attended our networking breakfast at the Colonnade on the 11th and our mixer at Hayashi's last Thursday. In June, the chamber also introduced its brand new monthly social media network workshop, first Friday of each month at 2 o'clock. Topic for the first session was Facebook. Topic for the next section in July is LinkedIn. The workshop followed actually our very successful quarterly newsmaker luncheon. The Honorable Mayor Mike LaVault was our keynote speaker. We had nearly 70 people involved in both of the Friday activities, and I want to especially thank Councilman Villanueva, the Vice Mayor, Mr. Biondo, and also Councilman Hall for attending that session. This Friday, our chamber hosts its business monthly Biz Ed workshop. This month's topic is the essentials of strategic business planning. It's at 8:30 at the Communiversity. Seating is limited, thanks to Councilman Hall, who joined us last month for a session on strategic planning. We expect 60 at that meeting. And a very important announcement and invitation to you all. On July 9th, the Chamber hosts its monthly networking breakfast at the Colonnade at 7 o'clock. Guest speaker is the Honorable Debbie Lesko, representative from District 21. Her report from the last legislative session, and we'll also have representatives from the YMCA with exciting news about the coming Northwest Valley YMCA, which will be serving the cities of Surprise, El Mirage, Youngtown, Sun City, and Sun City West. It's going to be a very cool meeting, and we don't want you to miss it. It's at 7 o'clock at the Colonnade. Admission is free to our members. On July 10th, 17th, and the 24th, the Chamber hosts its Surprise City Council Candidate Forums. The 6 is... District 6 is on the 10th at the Windmill Inn at 6:30 to 8:30. District 1 is on the 17th, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Hampton Inn, and District 5 is on the 24th, Holiday Inn on Bullard. Open to the public. Great opportunity to get to know your future council members and more on the Chamber website. These forums are conducted by the Chamber Civic Affairs Committee. Joining us earlier tonight was one of our members, Mitch Liddell, who's from Century 21. Currently, I think still in the audience is Frank Diaz, who is our chair of the committee. Ray Grimm, who's putting this on, is not here tonight. Speaking of Civic Affairs, pleased to announce after our meeting with the Surprise Regional Board of Directors and Civic Affairs Committee, I have a letter to read to the mayor and council, if I may extend my time just a second or two.
You're good.
Dear Mayor Walcott, the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce's mission is to promote and expand our members' economic growth to enhance the Northwest Valley, and that's why today our Board of Directors unanimously passed a resolution in support of the Arizona Department of Transportation's proposed Bell Road and Grand Avenue Interchange Improvement Project. It's no secret that transportation improvements can and have resulted in economic development opportunities, and our members, comprised of businesses in Surprise, Sun City West, El Mirage, and Youngtown, have told us that they are in support of such transportation improvements to grow their businesses and attract new members and customers to the area. We're pleased to hear that from ADOT, that in construction, this much-needed long-term transportation solution that the agency is committed to helping create a plan that will mitigate traffic congestion and create local business access opportunity with minimal disruption during the construction phase. The Chamber believes that Proposition 400 funding allocated to the Bell Road and Grand Avenue Interchange Improvement Project should be used in accordance with the original vote of the people. Our local businesses will enjoy the benefits of this transportation fix, and the City of Surprise and Northwest Valley commuters will enjoy a safer and more efficient route to and from work, medical facilities, or wherever their travels may take them. If you should have any questions, please feel free to contact me at 623-583-0692 or email me at abjackson@surpriseregionalchamber.com. Sincerely, Ab Jackson, President and CEO of the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce. And other than that, Mayor, not much is going on at the Chamber.
Thank you, Ab, very much. Appreciate that. All right. Future agenda items. Members, we have one more council meeting left. I think the agenda has been set, but are there workshop items that we wish to discuss after the break? Seeing none at the moment, we will certainly, Councilmember Alton.
Yes, thank you. I was a little slow on my digital finger. We have had a meeting regarding the trail markers for all the trail systems within the City of Surprise. The meeting went well, and I asked that the city continue to put it on the forefront as to working with all the HOAs within our district, within our city, if they have trails, that they participate in an open dialogue as to how we might work together as a public-private partnership in marking these trails for fire and safety. If there is a accident or a incident out on a trail, how are these people that are witnessing this supposed to alert the fire department? They could do it certainly with their cell phone, but they have no idea where they are. So by having some trail markers within the whole entire City of Surprise, if there is trails involved, it gives the citizens a little bit more comfort as to where and what's happened to them and where they are, to allow the fire and the police in order to respond. So I'd like to have that come up soon as possible, please. Thank you.
Councilmember Alton, I appreciate the initiative that you've brought before the council on the issue of trail markers, and I appreciate the fact that you've had some good time with our development staff to come up with some solutions. And perhaps that is an agenda that we can itemize early on in August to just bring people up to speed on where we're at. Great. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll take the council reports. Councilmember Villanueva?
No report tonight.
Councilmember Alton?
I kind of just mentioned it, and that as we had a very, very good meeting, first meeting, and we're looking for a lot more participation from the HOAs, looking for the trail markers. Thank you very much.
Very good. Councilmember Hall.
No report, because I know you're going to talk about the Texcelerator today, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Mankiewicz.
Yes. I just want to once again congratulate the Dusty Duo Ceramics shop. I attended my first ribbon cutting. What a pleasure that was! Great people, great folks from the chamber. That was wonderful. And that same day, I had an interesting meeting with Skip and a couple of gentlemen from APS about the siting of high tension lines that are going to run along the north part of the valley along 74. And I begged these guys to send up the flagpole some kind of signal that we need to beautify high tension towers. There's got to be an artistic way to design these things other than have an engineer design it, especially since we have them crisscrossing the beautiful areas of our valley north of the white tanks. And they promised me that they would send that up the flagpole. It's a complex problem, but I made my pitch for beauty.
I know where we can get a windmill design, a windmill. Vice Mayor Biondo.
I'll pass.
Okay. Well, I'll make my report rather brief. I just really wanted to compliment Julie Neal and her team over at Texcelerator. Today, Councilmember Hall joined me today at the Texcelerator to welcome a delegation from Nogales, Mexico. As you may recall, I traveled to Nogales a couple of months ago. Several of the mayors from MAG went down to Nogales, and as part of a binational business meeting that we had in Nogales, and we all agreed that we wanted to work together and find ways to reach out and find ways to develop jobs and economic opportunity across the border. And so today it was my pleasure to welcome the Nogales delegation to come up here and take a look. They were on a tour of all the Texcelerators in the valley, or the majority of them at least. And ours was to be their last stop. I think they might have liked to have stayed at our Texcelerator rather than moving on to one last stop, because they were really, really impressed, not only with what we've been able to do with very modest investments with a repurposing of that facility, but also with the success of certain of our businesses. And so it was truly a great experience. They were excited to meet our tenants and explore opportunities to try to perhaps not only bring other opportunities up north, but for them to be able to help and assist in partial or part manufacturing for some of those businesses in our Texcelerator that are being developed. So it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And again, I just want to congratulate Julie Neal for running an incredible operation. And what a feather in our cap to have now international attention in our Texcelerator. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing for the city of Surprise. So very proud of our economic development and the community development department for the operations going on at Texcelerator. With that, I am going to post, we've discovered a new way to post my reports rather than going on forever and ever, and we're going to post my reports on my blog spot. And so encourage you council members that if you want to shorten our meetings, and you can do that as well. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move. Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to adjourn this evening's meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 This meeting is adjourned.
I only left my garage open for a few minutes.
I never thought about locking my car when it's in front of my house.
I left my house windows open while at work for some fresh air.